Welcome to the Wednesday, October 25th edition of the PFF Forecast. We've got an earlier show today, in large part because we think maybe some trades will break, and I just want Brad on the line as any trades happen so he can report on them. We will talk about some potential trade implications, get a little injury roundup. We're going to do some SGP builds with Judah, and then we'll get to the locks of the week. It's going to be a great show. Let's rock. The trade wins, they are blowing. Brad, you tweeted out this like weird gif of winds blowing in a field, and it took me a solid 30 seconds to figure out whether you had just been drinking a lot of bourbon or what was going on. And we've had one trade?
Just the one trade, Kevin Byard, Mecole Hardman, I guess, if you want to throw him in the mix there. He did make some plays for the Chiefs. Yeah, the winds are blowing. I know it's a little bit dead. There are a lot of conversations happening. There are some cool deals that aren't going to happen, but almost happened, which, I can't allude to more than that. What's up?
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah. It could have been cool. But yeah, no, it's we're going to get some more action in the next 6 days. I promise you that.
What is, if you had to guess or you had to place a bet on one player to get traded that would have, like, is there a player that could get traded that has any impact on a betting market of any kind, do you think?
Yeah, like if you look at the bigger name guys, and I do generally think these are less likely than obviously the late round pick swaps and stuff like that. I think one thing that just seems to be bubbling more and more, some reports this morning from Nikki Javala, who I think works at the Washington Post. She covers the Commanders, putting out that they have received an offer for Montez Sweat. I've talked a ton, a lot of the articles about how the Commanders kind of can't keep both Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I think the Atlanta Falcons could be a team there. There's some front office connections between those two teams. Basically, some guys in Atlanta that used to work in Washington. Your Niners, kind of couldn't do much against the Minnesota Vikings this past weekend. Maybe they try to make a splash at another edge rusher. We know they love defensive line, and a handful of other teams, just because I think it's so ripe for the plucking, because teams know the Commanders probably can't keep both of these guys. So really all you have to do is beat a compensatory pick. And that's kind of the market. Maybe they get better than that. But yeah, those are kind of just some random teams, but teams that could probably use some edge help.
Makes sense. Edge rusher is like a very deep position and one that many teams need a lot of depth at. So it makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's get into this. Week 8. We have no buys this week, so a lot of games. Any injuries to be mindful of as we go into this?
What did you say? You cut off.
Oh, sorry. Great podcasting. I said any injuries for us to be mindful of as we get into this week.
Yeah, it's mostly quarterbacks. So, going back to Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, I doubt plays this week. So, I think we're going to get, it sounds like a combination of Malik Willis and Will Levis, which is always a good thing when you're going to start two quarterbacks, because you probably have faith in neither. But a couple others, I think Tyson Bagent obviously going to start again. You doubted me on Sunday, but he's going to get the start over Justin Fields again. I think there's a couple other quarterbacks that are dinged up. Jimmy G, I think, is going to play for the Raiders. I think they're also probably buyers in the edge rusher market as well. Maybe a name to keep an eye on there. Otherwise, Debo's not going to play. He was said to be out for 2 weeks. Anyone else I'm forgetting? You guys can think of?
Watson out. He's out. PJ Walker week.
Yep. What's the deal with Watson? Do you believe this like random muscle in his shoulder that's supposedly weak, or is there something that's not getting, or something that's getting covered up?
There's a video of a cut up of a bunch of throws from the past game, and like he could not generate velocity on the football. So I believe it. I don't think there's any grand conspiracy here or anything like that. I'm not in the Brady Quinn camp, although that was a great interaction on Twitter last night for those who saw it. But I don't think there's anything going on there. I think he's just not healthy. PJ Walker, like you said, now signed to the active roster. They might as well put him on IR potentially and just let him get fully healthy. But yeah, that's another good one, of course, to mention. And we have a comment here from Dan Bodine. Jalen Hurts is hurt. I think you saw it in that game against Miami, a little bit labored in running. I think it's a lower body thing, but he fully plans to play.
That's good to know. All right, let's get into it then. We've got full slate here. So, Judah, I expect that you've got a lot cooking up here. If you are new to the podcast, what we do every Wednesday afternoon is we talk about how to build SGP narratives. If you have not taken a look at how Judah does this, you absolutely should. Last year, his printed SGPs on PFF.com had an over 80% ROI. You hit some ridiculous 150 to 1 and should have hit 2 in the same weekend. But the concept is that you build these on a data-driven narrative as opposed to just randomly picking touchdown bets, putting them in a same-game parlay, and praying to God. So here we instead extol that as a mechanism for making some money. So I'll give it to you. Where do you want to go first with SGPs this week?
Yeah, first we'll start with game tomorrow night, and that's going to be the Bills passing attack against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There are a couple of kind of main angles and maybe some tertiary ones as well. The main one is that this is something we highlighted last week. The Buccaneers are one of the biggest pass funnel teams, meaning they're very good stopping the run and struggle to defend the pass. That certainly is kind of elevated or magnified, I should say, in a spot with the Bills, who, as it is, are not running as much. That kind of also compounds with the fact that the books are right now pricing in a lot of kind of Josh Allen's pass production, which includes many rushing attempts, which are way down this season. So there's going to be plenty of passing volume. With some of their tight end injuries, they're going to be moving a lot to 11 personnel. They kind of experimented with the 12 personnel. I think that's going to mean a lot of kind of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. The Bucs are extremely beatable in terms of explosive plays, which I think Diggs right now has such a commanding share. And it would be thoroughly unsurprising to see him kind of earn a ton of targets, that I like that spot. But really, Gabe Davis is the one I'm looking to highlight, especially because of the Bucs' weakness deep. He is graded as one of the best at our catch point / after the catch metrics. His prop right now is 41. Not so much needs to go right, especially for a guy with such a downfield role in Gabe Davis to kind of get 100 yards. He's going to get targets. I kind of highlighted him last week. That did not work out, but I'm going right back to the well here. I would also not be surprised. The Bills, if you kind of think about how this game script goes, the Bucs have been terrible on kind of these scripted plays. The Bills, conversely, when they kind of get ahead, which I would not be surprised to see here, really just like they pounce on teams when they kind of like start 10-0. It's when we think of like the Bills, these kind of fluky games, it's a lot of times when they're playing from behind. And like Josh Allen has some bad turnovers, they also can beat teams 48-20, like they did against the Dolphins. And that is continuing to press the gas pedal and continuing to throw. All of that kind of coalesces. And the main kind of summary bullet point of this angle is Bucs are good against the run, bad against the pass, are pretty easy to beat deep. That's kind of the Gabe Davis role. His props are kind of reflecting pass production in which this team ran the ball more just because Josh Allen ran the ball a bunch. All of that kind of, I think, is mispriced and a spot I'm going to be looking to attack.
That makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that I think is interesting about this is you look at the Bucs defense. I think the place where they are weak is kind of how they, combat speed. Like they're just not a very fast defense, right? And like Gabe Davis getting down the football field makes a lot of sense here. Allen, I feel like, has been somewhat undervalued. He's graded really well and just, has played kind of poorly in a few different spots that have caused some close games. But I am overall bullish on the Bills offense in particular going forward.
Yeah. I mean, third highest explosive play rate.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say third highest explosive play rate for the Bucs. We're going to see some explosive from the Bills.
So just because you mentioned Gabe Davis, and on this note, and maybe this isn't an SGP question, but just, picking your brain on props, do you explore the longest reception market? Just because a guy like Gabe Davis, do you have any general thoughts on that market? Just because I feel like he is like the guy where he could have 2 catches for 100 yards. That's kind of his speed.
Yeah, I think kind of with the introduction of these alt receiving lines, I'd just rather take that, where it's like if I'm going to bet on, over 18.5 receptions, like it's more than likely like that big play is going to be, maybe a 20 to 30 yarder as opposed to or a 28 to 35 yarder as opposed to just like 22 yards to get me over that. And I'd rather just take the upside that kind of carries with the prop.
All right, what else you got?
Let's go with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think kind of two angles generally about the team. One of which is that the Steelers play a ton of man coverage. If we kind of flip this and have the Steelers on defense here, we'll see that they do not have the secondary to uphold this kind of man-heavy unit. Right, we talk all the time about man coverage. Targets are both more predictable in terms of where they're going to go, and also it's a reflection of the talent on the field. Good corners beat good receivers beat good corners. I think this is especially true for the matchup we're about to highlight, which is Christian Kirk, who has about a 30% target share in man coverage, as opposed to like a close to 18-20% in the zone. It's like kind of funny because you can almost look at in the Jaguars matchups which wide receiver has popped off, and it's just like Calvin Ridley's done well in the zone games. Christian Kirk has done well in the zone games. Christian Kirk has done well in the man games. This is one of those man games. The strength of the Steelers, as you can see, are their edge rushers. That is kind of mitigated when Trevor Lawrence is getting rid of the ball so quickly. He's been dominant against man coverage for a year and a half now, right up there with Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoa by basically any efficiency metric you will use. The targets are going to go through Christian Kirk. They're pricing in medians. The medians don't really mean much when it's holding in a sample of both man and zone coverage. This is a man coverage game. I'm going to be building around the Jaguars passing attack and it flowing through Christian Kirk.
It's interesting because I think wasn't the narrative that Calvin Ridley was going to be the man beater in this offense, and obviously that one clip of him like running a route super fast. And I want to say last year that I think it was Chargers Jags, and we talked about how the Chargers can play a lot of zone, and Christian Kirk, was the guy that was dominating zone there. So it's really interesting to see how he has come through and started dominating in man coverage this year.
Yeah. This is an angle I've been on for a couple of years, actually. He's always had an extremely high target share against him. It's also funny with Ridley that when I was looking back at his numbers, was always amazing at separating versus zone insofar as we can kind of chart those things. And obviously it means a little bit less to separate in zone, but finding that soft spot, that's really where he excels. But it's also this matchup in the slot, which really, really kind of elevates the Kirk angle here.
I love it. All right. Anything else for us this week?
Those are kind of the main ones until we get some more pricing. I wouldn't mind. I'll throw one flyer on here, and that's I feel like death taxes and me building Miami Dolphins same game parlays. Yes, the Patriots have played a lot better as of late. This is also still an extreme man heavy team. If the offense kind of goes flat, which I don't think would be so shocking. We have a large sample of that offense being bad before the past couple of weeks. We can just see the Dolphins really, really kind of imposing their will. And that is a bet on all of Mostert, Hill, and Waddle. And kind of Miami is one of the rare teams. Books are going to evenly price kind of correlations of, it's very rare for, almost impossible for, two wide receivers to go way over their alt yards and a running back to do so. And books are kind of pricing that evenly, whether it's the Miami Dolphins who have their wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, running back 1 going way over their alts, or it's the New York Giants doing that. So I kind of want to buy into spots where I could see the Dolphins being extremely explosive, and that's against a man coverage team like the Patriots who can't defend the Miami offense, and just a lot of play volume, which can happen if Mac Jones completely falls flat as he had in previous weeks. I'd also want to highlight Jalen Phillips coming back is enormous. Really, really helps that pass rush, especially for a guy like Mac Jones who takes a lot of sacks. I would not kind of underestimate the influence there.
And he was great against the Eagles. Not a great game for the Dolphins overall, but he was dominant. I mean, I guess Lane Johnson isn't at full strength. Is that right? But still, that was super impressive.
He may have had, I don't know how he charted. I should have checked, but he may have had the first sack on Lane Johnson per our charting in years. But I haven't checked it if we credited that anyway.
In our hearts, he made it happen. Okay, We're going to get to the week 8 slate here in just one second before we do. Who are the pretenders? Who are the contenders? guys, we're going to talk about that here in a second. And on DraftKings, you do not want to be a pretender. You want to be a contender. So here's how you do that. New customers use promo code PFF and get $5 or bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. You don't have to wait for the bets to your first bet to cash. You just get those bonus bets immediately. And all customers can take advantage of a sweetener on every game this October. So we're going to talk about some lines that we like. And at DraftKings, you can go and put your money where your mouth is. So get in on the football action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. I might mention that, yes, they do have same game parlays. So the ones that Judah just talked about, you can go get involved there. Download the app now and use promo code PFF. New customers, when they use that promo code, bet just $5 to get anything on anything and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. This is only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code PFF. All right, the best part of the podcast, the part everyone tunes in for. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net because apparently that still exists, .net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Licensee partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, Louisiana. 21 plus, varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. So set the timer. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, let's get into week 8. You guys ready? All right, here we go. Brad, why don't you kick us off?
Yep. So Drew just touched on it. It's still under a field goal. And as much as we hate, a Mike Tomlin home dog, I just don't like this matchup for Pittsburgh. They're going to mitigate the pass rush, kind of the same narrative we had against the New Orleans Saints. Trevor Lawrence had, I think, a 2.1 second average time to throw. And he mentioned the slot matchup. I mean, whoever they're trotting out besides Joey Porter Jr., they had a little bit of Patrick Peterson in the slot in this past week against LA. Short story long, it didn't go particularly well in that spot, and I think they'll continue with that. Maybe it's Shandon Sullivan, who knows? But I just don't like this matchup. They're going to get beat quickly in the line of, off the line of scrimmage. And I think again, on the other side of the ball, this Jaguars run defense is, a top 5, top 10 unit by pretty much any metric. If the Steelers are sitting in a bunch of 3rd and longs, their tackles, they've gone back to Dan Moore at left tackle. He got beat a handful of times in this game this past weekend. And I think particularly for both tackles, smaller off-ball linebacker, outside linebacker type guys like a Josh Allen, I think is a bigger issue than I think they hold up fairly well against some of the speed to power guys. So yeah, I'm taking the Jaguars here, -2.5. I see it at most books.
Yeah. I'm going to have to, that was my first bet also. I'll just give some more reasoning because this is, I think, by far my favorite bet of the slate, which is that, yes, Deontay Johnson just came back. The Steelers offense right now is being market power rated about 21st best in the league. You can check that on impredictable.com. They kind of scrape the market rankings. They use current lines and look ahead lines to derive team strengths, which I think is absolutely egregious. Like, they put together their first 2 good drives of the season last week. Clap it up for them. They did it. They were able to sustain offense for a couple of drives there. They're by far the worst offense by a lot of these drive numbers. And I think a lot of that is a function of things we've talked about in the past, which is that Kenny Pickett last year, Mitch Trubisky last year, Kenny Pickett this year has thrown into tight windows about 10% more than the rest of the league. Your base rate of success on throws to tight windows is essentially, I used to use the example of like the New York Jets. I feel like that doesn't work, but way worse than the worst offense in the NFL. Your chances of an interception are 6 times more likely than throws to not tight windows. They force coverage mistakes at the lowest rate in the NFL. Having Deontay Johnson back is great. It does not kind of cover up these schematic issues, which I don't think can just magically disappear. And the market is pricing this as like kind of a, a little bit below average offense when this is by far the worst offense in the NFL, at least so far this season.
I had that one on my list. I didn't think I would ever get to it because I knew that both of you were going to like it as well. So let's see here. I think the first one that I do want to call out, I'll call it a player prop here, is actually going back to that Tampa Bay Bucks and Buffalo Bills game. And I think along the same lines and logic that you had, Judah, I think you could obviously make a case for the Gabe Davis over. I think the thing here is that, yeah, Gabe Davis is good, but there's no reason not to target Stephon Diggs 15 times in this game, especially coming off of a loss where, look, he was the only thing that was really working for them. And I think they'll go back to feeding him. And Carlton Davis is fine, but he's 31st in PFF grade. I'm sure they'll move Stephon Diggs around as they normally do. So I think he's at 85.5 yards. I like that as an over in this game. I do think that the Bucs will be able to have some success on offense against a Bills defense that, is fine, but I don't think the greatest thing in the world. And here's the other thing. I think they want to protect Josh Allen from injuries a little bit, and the Bucs are a good run defense. So this should increase, some passing volume in this one. So that's my first submission. Stephon Diggs over. Brad?
I'll stick with that game as well, looking at the other side of the ball. So I like the Chris Godwin over 5.5 receptions in this game. Look, the Bills still do have a decent pass rush. I think we're going to see a healthier Von Miller, but they are starting two, rookie contract linebackers, guys that have made some plays the last couple of weeks, but, not in the caliber and the stratosphere of Matt Milano. They have two starting safeties that are in their low 30s, and they've had injuries, of course, in the secondary. But I think because the pass rush and Baker Mayfield doing a consistently better job, we're waiting for that regression. Kind of hasn't come yet, but I think part of that is because he is getting the ball out quickly, and instead of trying to make magic with pressure, just throwing the ball. But I don't love waiting for longer developing routes with Mike Evans. I think he'll just take a lot of the underneath stuff over the slot with a mismatch at that second level. I think Chris Godwin's going to get a lot of targets in this game. So like the over 5.5 receptions for Chris Godwin.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Rashee Rice here. Over 44.5 yards against this Broncos defense. Rashee Rice has a ridiculous targets per route run rate. It's near 30%. He's done a lot of that against zone. He's actually struggled to kind of separate versus man. The Broncos play about 75% zone coverage. Rashee Rice is finally, I feel like we've been talking about this for weeks, the actual emergency. Finally was second on the Chiefs in routes run last week. I expect that to continue. He's a yards after the catch monster. I think we kind of saw that a little bit last Sunday. The Chiefs are going to be throwing plenty in this game. I actually expect the Broncos offense to move the ball a little bit, which honestly, it doesn't really matter. The Chiefs are going to be throwing no matter the game script. This price is building in a lot of kind of Rashee Rice as more of a part-time player. I expect him to continue to get 75% of the snaps. It's a matchup that sets up particularly well for him. I like over 47.5.
He's their best receiver.
44.5.
Yeah. Particularly close. All right. I am going to go back to the well on a team that, look, the restoration of the Roar has been very vociferous over the first part of this season. And it has dissipated into a whimper last week. Outdoors against the Baltimore Ravens, who are a very good team. But Jared Goff outdoors in Baltimore versus Jared Goff at home against the Raiders, I think is just such a massive, massive difference. The Raiders are pretty terrible. You said you think Jimmy G is going to play, Brad?
Yeah, I think so.
Jimmy G banged up is one of the most terrifying things you can possibly imagine on a football field. I do not think there is a player in this league who is impacted by small injuries more than Jimmy G. I have witnessed it with my own eyes many times. Anyways, Detroit is -8. I like this in two ways. I like Detroit -8. I also love them as a teaser, down to 2, little long teaser. Who do I want to tease them with? I think there are a couple of really, really good options. The first one that I will mention are the Ravens, down to 2.5. They're playing in Arizona. I will omit the Los Angeles Chargers for Argent sanity. And I will include what I think is, a good one as well, which is Chiefs down to 1 in Denver. So those are a couple there ways to play that game.
Yep, it's Long Wednesday for sure. There are so many legs out there, for the people, and they've been good to us this season so far. So going back to a prop, I've been waiting for sack props for the Atlanta Falcons, particularly the interior defenders. We're going to get Malik Willis and Will Levis. Both guys have pretty abysmal pressure to sack rates, but I don't see anything yet. So I'll go to one that we might not be getting the best value at just because he just had 2 sacks in his return to this Chiefs lineup. But we know Russell Wilson holds onto the ball more than anyone. He is PFF's #1 quarterback right now in the amount of pressure we've charted as his fault. And Charles Omenihu comes back for this team. Judah, I'm killing you, man. I'm killing you. In particular here, why I like it, he played 32 snaps last week. 17, over half of those were at left end or left end outside. So over our dear old pal Mike McGlinchey, who is the pass protecting weak spot of this Denver Broncos defensive line. Russell Wilson is going to hold on to the ball for a long time. They're probably going to be in a negative game script, probably 10 seconds into the game. So they're going to be trying to throw a lot, throw downfield. And Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson. I'm seeing over a quarter sack is plus 154. And I apologize, Judah, for snaking that one from you again.
I feel like we need a snake order now so that Brad can't take two of my first 3 in a row. But yes, I do like that. I'll pivot to one that I like as a spread, and that's the Houston Texans at -3 against the Carolina Panthers. I think that if you look at the look ahead line here, like before the season, it was Carolina -3. Which I think is a pretty interesting kind of turn and interesting frame of reference of how far kind of CJ Stroud has come and where Bryce Young and the Panthers are at. I would say that first off, Tank Dell should be back. Nico Collins should be back. I don't know if they're the number 4 and 5 wide receivers in the NFL as some might have it, but I think there are certainly elite producers. Thank you. And the matchup, I think, sets up perfectly, which is that Carolina, CJ Stroud has amazing splits. When his pocket is kept clean versus not clean. The Panthers, I think Laramie Tunsil can deal with Brian Burns, and outside of that, don't really have any pass rush to speak of, nor do they have anyone to cover Tank Dell and Nico Collins. Should have plenty of a clean pocket for CJ Stroud to operate with. And on the other side of the ball, the Panthers' offensive line is absolutely dreadful right now. Houston has kind of been above league average at generating quick pressure, regular pressure. I expect that to continue. Steven Nelson's had a terrific year. I expect him, and even Jimmy Ward's been good in the slot. I expect them to kind of take away or at least limit Adam Thielen's production. And the Panthers really have no one else. If you're going to beat the Texans, you're going to want to do it with kind of secondary wide receivers, and Jonathan Mingo and DJ Chark have not been that at all. Add the fact that they're changing play callers, it's likely going to be there's some uncertainty there, but I'm more than happy to kind of take the points with a Texans offense, which is power ranked right now around 17. I actually, believe it or not, think that's still a little bit too low, especially with how good Stroud has been. And in this situation, I think it's kind of perfect to highlight and elevate the strengths of Stroud and the Texans.
I do like the Texans that spot. I like little Tank Dell coming back off of injury as well. I don't know what his number has been, what it was. I feel like this is a good spot, as you said, for the passing game there. So let me go to Bengals Niners. I think this spread 5.5. Niners did not look impressive offensively. So I think there's a decent chance that if Burrow did heal up a little bit, this is a closer game. And I would be surprised if the Niners don't learn a bit of a lesson. No Deebo Samuel again right here. Is in the first half, you were able to feed Brandon Ayuk, and in the second half, you did not feed him at all. He has been the most dominant. He is ranked number 1 in PFF separation grade, which I think he should have no problem separating against the Bengals corners, none of whom have a PFF grade over 70 so far this year. So I think over for Ayuk. I'm guessing his receptions prop 4.5, 5.5. I think his yardage was like 57.5, 59.5, some around there last week. And I don't think he actually got over the closing number. So I'm guessing there will be, a little bit of a retraction there. Maybe we can get it in the low 50s, somewhere around there. But I think this is one of the bigger matchup advantages for the Niners in this game. Look, quite frankly, they maybe lost that game to Minnesota because they couldn't find a way to get Ayuk the ball in the second half. So rolling my guy Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, he had 5 for 57 in the first half and did not have a catch the second half. So he almost hit all the numbers in the first half of the game. Real quick, just going back to Judas, this is not my official play, but I would also keep an eye on some Dameon Pierce props. I should start spamming attempts props more because I love attempts props, but also just rushing yards because of the potential favorable game script. The Panthers might have the worst run defense in the NFL. It's certainly bottom 5 in pretty much every metric you look at. So if they get a lead, they're also coming off a bye. The offensive line is finally practicing together for 2 weeks in a row, for the first time basically all season. If the game plays out how we expect, I think Dameon Pierce will get a ton of second half carries. So I would keep an eye on that one. One more for me. I think this is I'll admit this is kind of a trade deadline, keeping an eye on things bet. It's the Atlanta Falcons at the Tennessee Titans. We know we're getting Malik Willis and Will Levis. I guess Will Levis is the primary quarterback, whatever that's supposed to mean. The Titans' offensive line, as I just mentioned before, is atrocious. Both these guys take a ton of sacks, but also they already traded Kevin Byard. Even if they don't trade, let's say, Danico Autry, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, maybe, even if they don't trade those guys before Sunday, there's probably a decent chance they don't play a lot of snaps in this game. So you keep them healthy for Monday and maybe make a trade there. So, I just think it's two teams moving in opposite directions. I think Atlanta could be a buyer and Tennessee is probably the biggest seller in the NFL. Not that should inform your bets, but anyway, it is Mike Vrabel and all those things. I get that, but I do like Atlanta in the spot laying a field goal.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. The Titans appear to be like big sellers. I mean, we've seen Malik Willis play football. I'd rather have Breece Hall play quarterback than Malik Willis. We'll throw back there.
Change your spot. You change your tune.
Yeah, for the people. But look, the thing that I would read from that is if you can't definitively say, like, we're just going to go with Will Levis, like, what does that mean about what Will Levis has shown? It's like a little bit scary for me. I think honestly, if they had anyone slightly better than Desmond Ridder, it'd be really compelling to roll with them there. I think it's a really good point. Okay, I have one more that I want to throw out here, and I'm very interested in your guys' take on this. So, Dallas Cowboys are getting giving 6.5 points at home. We have talked about the Rams in situations where, when they have an advantage, or at least not a huge disadvantage on the offensive line, defensive line matchup, that, they do have a really good offense. Stafford has played pretty well. Now, I am definitely concerned about the Cowboys pass rush. So this is why I wanted to ask you guys your thoughts on this. This is just too many points in my estimation for the Cowboys to be giving up. Their offense, I think, has been mediocre at best. The Rams offense is better than the Cowboys offense. Like, I think there's no debate there. So unless we think that this is a game where the Cowboys are just going to be able to totally destroy Matt Stafford, which I think could happen, but the Rams offensive line hasn't been a total nightmare. There's been some strong play on the right side of it. The left side of it has been a disaster. Their receivers should win in this matchup. I think 6.5 is just too many points, looking at these two teams, with the one caveat that matchup does scare me.
Jude, I'll let you jump in. I have some thoughts, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of exactly how I've been approaching this, which is 6.5, too many points. The Rams have a better offense when you look at the kind of fundamentals of it. It's really a question of how strong is this matchup angle? And it's we talk about quarterback traits and how certain matchups kind of elevate or mitigate certain players. And Matthew Stafford is the archetype of his kind of really great in structures, like him and Kirk Cousins. Really great in structure, but if you force him to scramble, it's a little less good. It's really a matter of how the Rams counter. If anything, it really points me to Cooper Kupp, who's got a huge matchup advantage against Jordan Lewis in the slot. And also has whenever Matthew Stafford's pressured, whenever Matthew Stafford's blitz has just outrageous target shares, 45% level. So maybe that's kind of the play, which if the Rams are going to win, it's probably going to flow through Cooper Kupp. And if the Rams are in a bad situation and the Cowboys pass rush is wreaking havoc, it's also probably going to mean lots of Cooper Kupp targets. Then maybe that's kind of the play. But I agree with you. 6 points is 6.5 points is way too many points for a better offense. And like, would it be unsurprising if there are certain levels of like, when there's a 6-point game, it's like levels of shock when the underdog wins. Like, I don't think it's a 70% shock factor if the Rams win.
No, it feels to me, I see where the matchup comes into play, but the level of shock to me would be more of a 3-point underdog winning the game.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll propose one more bet. And this is something I've talked about with you guys. The Rams futures here, which is like, if you're going to kind of catapult yourself into the NFC conversation, like a win against Dallas here would be enormous. I got this at 60-1 last week. That was like a bad pricing by the books. It's now 40-1. I think you can check a better number there. I have it at 60, so I haven't exactly been so diligent about checking it. But I still think there's a lot of value there if you think the Rams are going to win. And that's maybe the play, which, like, especially it's kind of a signal of, if the Rams can hang here, if the Rams can beat Dallas, like, there's clearly upside. And as we kind of said, this is the matchup in which, like, if the Rams can overcome this, they can overcome any matchup, because the Dallas has the best in terms of like quick pressure. They're number one. They probably have the best pass rush in the league. I think this would be a huge statement win, and you can kind of play that angle.
Judah, I'm glad I let you go first, because the first point, I was going to say the Cooper Kupp thing in every which way. The Cowboys don't have linebackers that are healthy right now. They have good safeties, but 2 of them are bottom 10 graded safeties in the NFL for us so far this season. Over the middle, I mean, Stafford might target Cooper Kupp 25 times over the middle of the field. So I'm glad I let you get that one in first this time.
Yes, let's add Cooper Kupp there. I'm glad you brought futures, because I was looking at this for a couple of reasons. One is, I think the Minnesota Vikings win over the Niners, and obviously the Lions loss. The Packers have looked pretty terrible. Vikings play the Packers this week. They still have a couple of games against the Lions, right? They still have games against the Lions, and they have a particularly easy schedule over the next 6 weeks. Why does that matter? Because Justin Jefferson will ideally be back for those Lions games. So is there they have been bad this year, and they've had a lot of terrible luck, but their offense has been really, really good. If you just look at kind of the macro things that they're doing well, and not the kind of, they're turning the ball over in a lot of fluky ways. So I think that's particularly interesting. I think they're 6-1 right now to win that division. The Seahawks and Rams, I think, are interesting from a division perspective as well. The Niners dropping both of those games, dealing with some injuries, starting to see that bug hit them. Like, those Seahawks games with the Niners are always kind of just like anything can happen. So I do think there's some value in those futures markets. I'm glad you brought it up, Judah, because it does feel like right now there's a little bit of opportunity to say, okay, these teams were kind of dominant, but do we really feel they were that dominant only through 8 weeks of the season?
I love that one, Jordan. The first one, the Vikings. I got to shout out a friend of the pod, Jack Duffin, who was telling me he got plus 310 on the Vikings to make the playoffs during the San Francisco 49ers game. Yeah. Wow. I think it's like plus 135 now. But there's still, I see on DraftKings plus 550 to win the NFC North. Justin Jefferson, maybe because of the last 2 wins, it sounds like he will be right back in that 5th week after the IR stint. And they're probably not going to sell it all. They're not going to be buyers, but I think Brian Flores has fundamentally changed just by spamming blitzes and doing different things. I actually love the last sack of the game. He did drop 8, and I think Purdy was just so confused why there weren't 8 guys in his face that he actually, or threw an interception, whatever it was. Like, I think Flores makes the defense good enough. And then the last piece, like you said, their next 6 games, they're the Vikings, so they'll find a way to lose like 1 or 2 of them, but they'll probably be favored in all 6 of the games, or at least it'll be inside a field goal on all 6 of these next 6 games.
Yeah, that was my take. I think there's one game where I could see them being like a very, very short, road dog.
Yeah.
And other than that, Jordan Addison, like, showing up is huge. TJ Hawkinson, if he can just stay healthy, like, they still have the offensive pieces, I think, to make that happen. So, okay, let's pick the week. Yeah, right. Maybe they're not trading Danielle Hunter.
I don't think so.
All right. Before we pick our locks of the week, we are brought to you by our dear friends at Manscaped, who have taken a step up to present to you Balloween. Bring your face cleanest shave it's ever seen, and make sure that the rest of your body is also cleaned up, if you know what I mean. So this season, I'm actually going to ask you guys, what's the Halloween costume that we're rolling with this year?
I haven't landed on it yet. I don't know if I've worn a costume in years, but I'm a curmudgeon. But I'll think of it. I'll think of it.
I have not worn a costume
Ah,
You'll be in Ireland, right? So you can be like a leprechaun or so. That would probably be I guess they wouldn't take too kindly to that
can you
in
imagine
Ireland.
dressing up as a leprechaun in Ireland? That's actually, I paused this read to say that the best costumes are the ones that are ironic and funny, and like just dressing up as Barbie and Ken is not what Halloween is about. Please be creative. And when you're creative, make sure that you're not, itchy and scratchy underneath that costume. Get 20% off with promo code PFF plus free shipping from Manscaped. Manscaped has great products that will take care of you from head to toe. It includes the Manscaped Handyman, which gives your beard a great look. Comes with a ton of great stuff that you need to keep your facial hair looking as good as it possibly can. So if you're dressing up as like, I don't know, the Wolfman or something like that, they've got you covered. I will let you guys know I am doing a group costume. I'm bringing one back from a long, long time ago. It's a trio, and we're going to be the Powerpuff Girls. And it's going to be fantastic. So let it be. You can be sure that I'll be using my Manscaped products before that. But go to manscaped.com /PFF and use the promo code PFF to get 20% off plus free shipping at Manscaped. All right, you guys ready to pick some locks?
Let's do it. I give that segue a 0, but yeah, let's do it.
Actually, good point. Someone brings this up. I was going to do chain smokers. That's a 2-person thing. We had to include another person, so we had to go to 3. Am I disappointed? I am disappointed. Okay, there's no one else out there dressing up as the chain smokers. Nothing makes me happier than the idea of having a unique outfit, unique costume. Anyway.
Which Powerpuff Girl are you? I don't know the names of any of them. But...
I don't know yet. I don't know their names either.
Fair enough.
I know one's pink, one's blue, and I think the other's green.
Perfect.
Whichever one sets off my eyes best.
Of course.
All right. What do we like here? Remind me of the sack prop that you had, Brad.
It was Charles Omenihu plus 155 or plus 154, whatever. Yeah.
That was one that stuck out to me. And I think we were all pretty aligned on the Jags. So what else stuck out to you guys?
I mean, those were the two we Brad and I had both agreed on.
Cooper
George,
Kupp,
I
I
other
think.
teams you like?
Oh yeah.
Aside from the
it was Lions. Ravens. George, you had the teaser, right? Ravens and somebody else.
Yeah. Ravens, Lions.
I like that.
Throw that in there. All right. I do think the Cooper Kupp angle is compelling. Yeah. I feel like last week was a bit of an aberration there. So could throw that one in as well, which I liked. Any others we want to do?
Yeah, on the Kupp note, the Steelers just chose to let Puka kill them and not let Cooper Kupp kill them. And last time they played, it was years ago. But the Steelers have done better against Cooper Kupp than anyone. Maybe we get a little bit of. I'm sure it'll still be 7.5 or at least 6.5 minus 150, whatever. But I do like Cooper Kupp a lot in this matchup.
Awesome. All right, that's a 4-pack. We've got Charles Omenihu plus 155 or 0.25 sacks. We've got our Jaguars. What are they? Minus 2.5.
Yep.
Against the downtrodden Pittsburgh Steelers, dare I say. And we've got Cooper Kupp. We'll figure out whatever those props are not live yet. We'll get that number when it does. We'll post it in the Discord, which if you have not joined, you absolutely should. And then we'll close it out with a little teaser, a long action. Lions down to -2 at home against the Raiders on Monday night, and the Ravens down to 2.5 in Arizona against the Fighting Josh Dobbs. That was our podcast. Judah, travel safe to Ireland. Don't dress up as a leprechaun. Brad, let's take this offline and figure out a good costume for you, okay?
Perfect.
All right. Enjoy the chain smokers. See y'all.